Hello and welcome to the Annie Altman Show, the podcast, Season 5. Welcome to the 8th episode in the series on change. Today I'm here with Ariel Rachel talking about frequency. Ariel hosts The Frequency You Need on YouTube and Instagram and future platforms, and is a producer, is a intuitive energy healer, is many a title and many a thing, and I'm really excited that we are here podcasting virtually. It's finally time!
Hello, how are you? It's so good to be here with you in a shared space. Oh, you're radiant.
I'm really honored to have you on. And we've talked about the podcast and podcasting for a while, and here we are, and our frequencies in the moment and the time frequencies aligning and getting to catch up and talk, and now getting to podcast.
Absolutely.
Ooh, I'm feeling it going. Sure, I would love a little bit about you as a human, you as this human starting the frequency you need, as a creator, as a
Absolutely. So I started out, actually, I'm a producer in television, and within my own journey, I started to go through this awakening process. Now, this happened in 2018, and I woke up to a lot of revelations. I started seeking higher knowledge, higher wisdom. I was definitely trapped by my ego in a lot of situations. It kind of ruled my life, and I wanted to be free of that constraint. I wanted to be free of my thoughts. I wanted to control them. And as I awoke into some truths, my spiritual journey began, and that led me to, going on spontaneous trips to Sedona, and what was supposed to be 3 days ended up being 2 months. And I just finding myself and not being scared and letting go of that fear really catapulted me to this idea of creating a channel that was going to help people. So my initial creation was more geared towards solfeggio frequencies, binaural beats, anything that could help calm people down in their daily lives. ASMR was a big thing for me because it's like, I'm sure you're familiar with ASMR, but it was like listening to someone whisper in your ear. And I was like, all right, these are all the cool ways I could mix, audio and visual and music just, together with certain sounds and really help people. As I was on my other, within my career, I was doing this on the side. That kind of came to a halt as I started to dive deeper into my career. And it kind of resurfaced to where I am feeling extremely called to just enlighten, share my message, and help people as best as I can, because there's a mass awakening happening right now. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear within the collective. And it's scary. It's scary because we don't know what's true and we don't know what's real. So we're journeying within, and a lot of us are doing this. And I thought, what better way to help than just to explain what has helped me on my journey and finding truth within myself and standing into my power. So I started researching frequencies, and that was my motto. I'm going to raise my frequency. And then understanding everyone's frequency and where they're normally at was a big deal. So I started to dive deep into that. And just figuring out where everyone kind of stood, the majority of people, which led me to the work. So like the Hawkins scale and where we all resonate at, and that everything is frequency.
I love hearing you talk about this stuff, both in a professional, semi-professional setting, and in the casual and in all of the settings, because it's your passion and your interest about it, and you're also, I feel big openness with you about it, and being open to new information or open to what is arising, and it's fun to just feel just play in what's happening here in this sort of.
It's another world. It's another realm to dive into that you didn't know that was there, but it exists, and it's kind of fascinating, and there's so much to it. And it's really refreshing once you start diving into this knowledge, and figuring out, like a puzzle, things start to just fit into place, or things start to click when I read certain information. And you know that feeling. It's like this beautiful, feeling like, oh, okay, now I understand. So that has always been what I'd like to do, is help people figure out where their puzzles fit, their puzzle pieces are and where they fit.
Totally. And the only focusing on what we can just directly see and tangibly feel is not it's not the whole picture.
There's so much more.
Yeah. Okay, so for the part of me that loves the super tangible, I am an earth sign, what are the things? I'd love to get super word mincy for a bit about what does frequency mean to you? Or because you were aware, you felt, you were an intuitive, empathic, all of those word label things before you were like, yes, frequency is a word and scales.
So a lot of us on this planet are empaths, right? Empaths are what you would call a highly sensitive person. Very compassionate. They feel or take on other people's emotions. It almost makes them feel very alive. They love it and they hate it, but it actually feels them a bit. But it also makes them very sensitive and susceptible to other energies. So I was very empathic towards strangers and people, and I didn't necessarily know how to not take on that energy. When I realized that everything was in fact energy, and that I was vibrating in a lower vibrational frequency, because that's what energy is to me. It's just frequency. It's this wavelength, right? What am I emitting was another question. What energy am I emitting? What hertz am I at? And is this serving me? So when I realized that I was vibrating in the lower 120s, I realized I was more susceptible to disease, to psychic attack, to other people's energies, telepathic energies, that a lot of us aren't aware we have. It's like a strange concept to tell someone who's not into this that in fact, not all their thoughts are theirs, and that they could be picking up on someone else's and then in turn making it their own, or not understanding why they're feeling this pain from nowhere, not understanding that it's not theirs, that they took it on, that it was given to them. So in this reality, in this society, we give our energy so freely to people, so freely, and then we wonder why we're drained, but we're in fact choosing to give this energy to these people because we have choices, right? We choose to see these people who are energy vampires, but in essence, we choose to show up. We choose to stand there. We choose to listen and be in that field. So it's pretty interesting to realize that we are in charge of our energy and no one else is responsible for it or our frequency. So our thoughts dictate where we are and what we emit. If we can control that, well, then we can raise our frequency.
How do you control thoughts if thoughts are also like breath, where we don't always have control or things happen?
So that goes hand in hand with the ego. The ego is
control.
Yes, the ego is a big part of our thinking process. Okay, so how do we change that, right? Meditation, everyone's heard it 1,000 times. A lot of people just claim that they cannot do it. They sit down, they're like, it's not for me, I just can't sit still. Half the battle is sitting there. And then, that's half the battle. So, okay, if we can't do meditation, what's another tool? Because I was raising my frequency without meditating, and it was really simple. What I did was I reprogrammed my mind to, instead of giving a judgmental response or judging how things are or trying to figure out or control situations, I let go of that and I reprogrammed my mind, my subconscious, to counteract with a love response. If a judgmental thought came up, I would flip the script. If something negative came up, I would flip the script and do my best to get into the heart chakra, to trust that this person is not going to screw me over. I would just, as much as I could get into my heart space and raise my frequency, I would, because fear, shame, guilt, doubt, anger, those are all lower vibrational frequencies. Courage is about 200 on the scale. Acceptance is 350. So it's 0 to 1,000, 1,000 being the highest, and that's true and pure enlightenment. So my goal is to get as high as I possibly could by just reprogramming my mind to not judge. Judging is huge, and we don't see it as a problem because it's normalized in our society. It's normalized in our movies. It's normalized from our families. It's everywhere. We don't realize what we do. We're unconscious to the fact that we are, in essence, lowering our frequencies by our thought patterns and our negative belief systems. So reprogramming is huge. It's a huge one.
It is, and being aware of it, and also the judgment about the judgment, and the judgment about the frequency of, okay, well, this guilt, this anger has something to teach me. This wants attention. There's something to be learned from it.
Absolutely.
Rather than like, oh, this part of the wave's good, this part of the wave's bad. This is
well, yeah, the inner work. It's along with reprogramming your brain, it's also realizing, okay, am I judging this? Is this triggering me? Is this bringing up something in the past? Recognizing what a thought is when it comes into your brain, instead of letting it take you over, is the root of inner work. It's shadow work. It's figuring out, where did this fear come from? Who gave it to me? Who said this to me when I was in 5th grade? Why am I bringing it in now? Nurturing that fear, telling yourself it's okay, and moving upward and onward. It sounds so much easier than it is, but there's so many ways to raise your frequency that don't involve specifically changing your thought patterns immediately. It could be something simple as putting a face mask on, drinking more water, lighting a candle, staring and admiring a tree. It's getting yourself into stillness, gratitude, and appreciation. That'll bump you up as well. So there's many ways to raise those frequencies.
I remember the first time that you showed me that chart, and it being with numbers, and my conditioning, my programming, my science mind part of the brain was, and still does, feel this resistance to it of, well, now we have a number system, and so it's insinuating that these numbers are better than these numbers, and we should always be aiming for this top of this scale. And
that, yes.
Please jump in. Like, how to decouple those, how to be like, okay, we can use this tool to notice our frequency and to give numbers and words, and also still be accepting for that frequency of it, of whatever the frequency is.
So I think the scale is just a visual aid to kind of get us into a sense of awareness, to be aware that, you know, it doesn't have to be this number thing all the time, but be like, hey, I'm giving off fear right now. And I know that because I feel it, and I'm aware, and I saw this visual once. I don't know where all the numbers are, but I know that I'm not where I want to be. And I know that I have the power to fix that. I had one of my friends who doesn't agree with the scale at all, who doesn't think that it's completely accurate and takes it with a grain of salt. And I respect that. And I think the whole point of the scale is to kind of just show us in essence that, hey, we're energy. We're energy, baby. Like, we're energy, and what we emit is what we're going to get and what we're going to feel. So nothing is definitive of what is, right? Because we can't really prove that it is, but we feel that it is. I think it's just another visual aid that can help. I don't think a frequency to be measured in something can, you know, it just depends on you and what you feel in your heart. And you know when you're in alignment, you know when you're flying high and you feel joy, passion, excitement, love. That's your soul. That's your true self. That's your authentic self. So when you feel fear, jealousy, guilt, shame, that's pinching you off farther away from who you really are. That's not really you. That's your egoic mind holding on to things, bringing things up from the past, and keeping you trapped in your mind, which I know it's easier said than done. All of us, no matter how enlightened, we can go really high or really low. We all deal with things. Just when you think something is gone, it'll show up in another way. But the whole point of it is to be aware that it gets less, it's less, like the suffering is less. It gets easier to deal with. It gets easier to nurture. It gets easier to recognize and be like, okay, I'm here. Like it's okay. Like to safe, to make you feel safer. And so you feel like you have that space for yourself, that you are powerful. This whole thing is empowerment and helping people step into their power. So many of us feel powerless. What a revelation to realize we're not.
That we can change our own frequency rather than it being changed by other people or by the environments or by the circumstances.
Absolutely.
And just remembering that as the key, that I have this power, the superpower to say, okay, I see you thought, I hear you thought. What about this thought? Or what about focusing on this instead? Or what if I change the channel?
Yeah. Let me tune into something that feels a little bit better. You know, it's almost like saying, I can't get this right. Instead, you know, you're saying something negative, but if you were to say something like, I'm figuring it out, like that sounds lighter. Like, I'm figuring it out. Like, it's going to be like, I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm working towards it. Like, it just sounds lighter. It sounds better.
There is that different sound and cadence, and how much of communication ends up being not about the words as much as the sound and the tone and the speech timing and pace and the frequency, so literally and metaphorically.
Do you feel, when do you feel like you are at your highest frequency?
Ooh, I appreciate the question. In appreciation, definitely, and connection. I feel that in the connection, I would say, with different parts, and that can be all sorts of, with people, that can be with different parts of myself, that can be with nature, that can be with my concept of universal frequency.
Absolutely.
That feeling in attunement to me is that sort of like the two waves are going together. Though as I'm saying all this out loud, it can also sometimes be when it's like, oh, these waves are complementing each other, and like, look at this beautiful symphony, listen to this beautiful symphony.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It gets better and better.
It does. And I do notice that focusing on those things and saying, okay, well, recording podcasts, doing yoga, making chocolate, these things feel, I feel how I feel when I do it, and then move towards that, which again, like you're saying, is so simple and so challenging to do the things that feel good and do less of the things that feel not good.
It sounds easy, and it can be at times really easy once we really practice. But then there are times where it'll be a little more difficult because it's something that needs attention. It's something that needs to be brought to the surface. But when you ride that wave that you just described and you ride it real good, like I would suggest riding it until you can't ride it, like ride it into the ground, because like you're just building that momentum, right? Of that positive feeling of gratitude or love or whatever it is. And that starts to attach to other thought forms and other feelings. And oh, this is great too. And then like whoever you're around starts to feel this love, and it's infectious. I mean, you can become so good that I'll never forget, once I was with a friend, we were sitting there just appreciating like where I was at. I was just really appreciating my surroundings, and she was in a bad mood. She said something, and then like I didn't answer. It was something negative, and then I started complimenting like things, and she was like in an amazing mood. And then she told her mom the next day. She's like, yeah, she was in such a good mood, and I couldn't help myself. Like I was so happy. I turned into like, my mood switched so fast. And I was like, that's because the energy you're emitting is so powerful that whoever's in your field is feeling that. We have this esoteric field that people don't realize. It goes beyond our body. It's like this circle, and you know, your aura, you know, and people are affected by the energy when they come into your aura. So when we're vibrating super, super high, oh my God, so many people just feel calm around you. They feel high around you. They feel happy. You know, it's not, you ever have someone fall asleep next to you all the time? Like, not like on purpose, but like you'll be on the couch and your friend like passes out immediately. Does that ever happen?
Feeling of calm.
Yes. It's because the energy is safe. It's calm. And they feel calm. They feel relaxed. So there are so many signs of just look to people who you feel best around. That's not like an accident. It's like whoever you feel good after leaving an encounter with, that's a telltale sign of people you should surround yourself with.
Totally. And being truthful about the feeling that comes up, the feeling frequency of it. That, to go back to your question of what frequency I feel of, or where does it I feel connected to myself or vibrating high, is, to me, is truthfulness, a lot of it. The podcast used to be called True Shit, and then iTunes was like, can't correct the title. And that truthfulness of being truthful. So in the story you're saying, not denying your friend being in a bad mood, or being like, hey, you're not allowed to, you know, all toxic positivity of like, you're not allowed to be in a bad mood and that's the wrong thing and whatever. And also being truthful of you being like, here's the mood I'm in and I'm still going to be in this mood and this is still going to happen. And then the truthfulness too of how connected we all are, that our moods impact each other so much that then, and oh wow, I notice how differently I feel or how different the rest of my day goes when I let myself be impacted in this way. And you can also go the other way of like, you know, you could have let yourself be impacted and said, oh, all sorts of things like, oh, I need to be at the same, vibrate at the same level that is happening here and do that. Or, oh, I need to fix this because that's wrong, that vibration. I need to like caretake this. I'm saying things I've done. And also you can do the thing that is, hey, I witness, I sense your frequency and here's still mine. I'm still emitting that. And then let's see what they how they come together.
Because you're not accepting nor denying their reality. You're just acknowledging yours, and then they have that option too.
Yes. Okay, so I really like this idea of going through these 3 words of change your frequency. Because then I feel like we're sort of at the your word now, where, well, what's mine and what's yours? And with frequency, where does mine start and yours end, and ours all being connected? And what is your frequency? Is it your essence has a certain vibration? Is this a soul thing to you? What is it?
So
tell me, what is the answer?
your essence, your natural energy is the one that you were born with is an essence that no one else has. So your aura is specific to you. Now, your frequency, your aura, the way in which you radiate towards others is your energy and what you're emitting. So if you're naturally born with a radiant aura and you glow, that's your natural state.
May I pause?
Yeah.
Are all humans or are not all humans born with a radiant, glowing aura?
They are. I think everyone has
some capacity. I guess you could say if someone's real, like people, all the circumstances, someone could be born and could already.
There could be some denser. There's some denser auras. I mean, there's dense. It depends on how light you come into this world and what you choose. And oh my God, I'm so off topic right now. But
there is no topic. It's all.
Your aura is definitely your own. So you're responsible for that energy field and what others in essence interact with. Does that make sense?
Yes. And also if we're born with it, and I appreciate that we can go in this of like, are we in control of it then? Or is that our ego that's like, oh, well, this is my aura. And now
you're in control.
As I'm saying all this out loud for the first time, I feel like with the ego protection stuff, to you, is that our ego wanting to protect our aura and say, this is my essence and I'm going to protect it with these boundaries, these choices, these...
I'm so happy that you brought that up, because the number one spiritual trap is you thinking that you're spiritual, but that you are blocking people off from your aura because they're draining you of your energy, or that you are more in tune than they are. And it's like this it's called the spiritual trap, because it causes separation. And that's what the ego does. It causes separation. So when you don't want anyone in your aura, right? Like, I'm not letting any, I gotta cleanse my aura. I gotta cleanse this. Like, that's taking it to, it's good to practice healthy hygiene and cleansing energetically. Okay. But it almost causes a separation when you think like, I have to protect myself from all this stuff, all these people. It causes a separation. You're going to feel different energies from different people, from animals, from trees, whether you like it or not. So I think it's natural for our ego to want to protect us and build up walls, because that's what the ego does. It builds these invisible walls to cause separation. In my early journey, I thought that I was like God. Like, I was like, oh, I'm like, well, I'm more spiritual than they are, you know, like I've done the work. And I realized after taking a good look at myself that I was causing separation, because there's only oneness. We are all one. And that was just another illusion of separation. I think everybody is born with an aura. I think souls choose to come into this existence with denser lives than others. So yes, to answer your question, some people have more radiant auras than others. However, no one is cut off from achieving a radiant aura. Everyone has these abilities to do this. Everyone has the clairvoyance abilities, the empathic abilities. Some come in here more in tune than others. That's just a soul's choice, if you will. I'm getting really spiritual now.
I love it. I love getting to see this side of your frequency and what.
Thank you.
Yeah, please share it. That's what we're.
Of course.
We're here.
So,
I have another.
Yes.
Okay. So, is it our ego or is it our soul that's pointing to these preferences? When there's this thing that says, ooh, this feels good, or ooh, this doesn't?
That's our intuition. That's our intuition. So that's another thing. Your gut, your intuition is that voice inside your head that when someone asks you to, when someone says, pick a number from 1 to 7, and it screams the number at you first, but you second guess it and you say the other number, that's your intuition. Your intuition is the first thing that comes into your head. It's not that fear. It's not that, oh my God, I had a big problem distinguishing between fear and intuition.
Ooh, share more on that. And
yeah,
because those frequencies can, I feel that too in my experience, that the feeling, the sensation of fear can be so tricky and so slippery into looking like, oh, it's excitement. Oh, it's this thing. Oh, let me talk myself into this thing. Mm-hmm. How do you navigate that distinction?
It's practicing that kind of intuition by listening to that first thought that comes in and not analyzing. We are so programmed to analyze and think of all the possibilities and all of the outcomes. Our intuition is the way in which we can hone in and practice our intuitive skills is to practice our clairvoyance, open our third eye, listen to that inner guidance. I do a whole video on how to open the third eye, because it's so important. It's that higher wisdom, but you have an inner compass, an inner guidance, and it is a voice. And the more you practice opening and listening to that voice, it gets louder. And this can be achieved through meditation and through really intuitively asking myself, okay, like, what should I do now? Okay, the answer will come. You ever sit with yourself after a really bad, tragic time, and there's always like this voice, inner voice. It's like, it's okay. Like, it's breathe, like it nurtures, like your intuition has your best interest at heart. Your intuition will feel into things. The clairs, are you aware of the clairs?
Yeah, I would love for you to go through them and connect it with this too.
So like the clairvoyance is like closing our eyes and envisioning something, right? So how do we practice our clairvoyance? We take a look outside, we study outside, we shut our eyes, and then we recreate that same picture in our minds as best as possible. That helps us with our clear vision. That helps us with seeing things for what they are, seeing through things. I want to just touch really quick on the intuition part, because it's super, super important for people to understand that your gut, this also deals with food. So if you eat a lot of processed food, your intuition is not going to be very spot on, because you're getting mixed signals from your stomach, and your like healing your gut heals your intuition and makes it stronger. So I just wanted to touch on that. Food is very important to opening our clair abilities, and making sure we give our body the right foods to do that is essential for our psychic abilities. But
our interactions with our food and what we're saying to it while we're eating it, that whole
relationship. And food has frequency. I just want to add, food has frequency, and eating lower vibrational foods, which we all know, just mainly processed foods. The cheaper the food is, the worse it is for you, which is hopefully one day will change. But it's interesting that all these things close our third eye, cut us off from our higher wisdom, cut us off from our abilities. It's interesting that all these man-made foods and labs do these things. It just makes you wonder.
Going down the different conspiracy.
I don't want to get into the conspiracy theories.
But I just want to cut off your other part, though, where you were going with the food point is very important, that it's have a frequency, and the specific food and where it's from, and local food or things, how far it traveled, and that changing it, or who you're eating with, or how you're sitting.
Intention, and yes, specifically the foods you eat, for sure. So just being mindful of the frequency that you're eating, because that is, again, everything is energy. But I think our psychic abilities have been suppressed for a while with the normal diet that we are fed, and like growing up, what we were told is good and bad. So I think that also adds a lot to the confusion, because we don't know what's good and we don't know what's bad. So we had to figure it out on our own, which also helps our intuition. I know you know these meditations where you can kind of ask intuitively what your body needs at this time, what it's craving. And that's also a good tool to use in connecting with your body and figuring out what frequency you should be eating.
Is that one of the clairs?
So the clairs, I got sidetracked. The clairs, we've got clairvoyance, which
is not vision. Please go off on all of the tracks. Take the frequency where it goes, and I'll be like, change your frequency. We're coming back to these things.
Okay. So we've got clairvoyance, which is clear vision. We've got clair audience, which is one of my favorites. That high-pitched ringing that you hear in your ears. A lot of people think it's this medical condition, but really in the spiritual community, it's considered a download. It's considered spirit being close to you. It's considered a recalibration. When you hear snippets of songs that come randomly to you, ask yourself, what was it I was just thinking? Was I asking a question? Why is the Red Hot Chili Pepper song in my head? I wasn't thinking about Californication. What is the message here? Where did this come from? I didn't listen to it on the radio. These are forms of clairaudience. This is a form of spirit, higher wisdom, higher self, kind of communicating with us in a way to which we can understand. You ever just get into the car and then there's like a song that kind of fits with where you're at in the moment? I don't think that's a coincidence. So that's one. And then there's claircognizance and clairsentience, which is clear touch and clear knowing. So knowing how to feel clear and just knowing information about people you've just met is also one of them. And a lot of people have that ability. They just know things about people. They don't know why, they just know. So it's really cool once you unlock the clairs, because it kind of adds to this synchronistic effect of universal signs and synchronicities when you raise your frequency.
I love calling them the clairs.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes again to what we were talking about at the beginning of distinguishing your frequency from others. And then in some ways the clairs seem to sort of play on that, of being like, oh wait, I'm picking up on this other thing, or this other thing is coming in, and how do I use the connection, the blurred lines between where something starts and something ends.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You
to play and to explore. And also as soon as you said psychic and one of the first things my head went to is, wow, there's so much guilt and shame and other things around that word and around feelings generally, and I see a lot of parallels with stigma around mental health, and also things of like, oh, that's spiritual woo-woo nonsense, and so we're gonna just write this off. It's similar in how they both can get written off in some ways. And also for me personally, so much of what we're talking about is a feeling state, I'm going towards this feeling or that feeling, or not going towards it as much as that's helping me go towards something else that's helping me navigate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really, when you talk about the woo-woo and all the shame that comes around with all these things, it's so interesting to see the millennials, the Gen Z, really embracing and accepting crystals and new age movements. And there's witchcraft, but there's just spirituality in general, and like digging it, and really embracing that, hey, this shit's real. I live in Los Angeles, and I always say, I could see the mass awakening 2 years ago when a new crystal shop was popping up everywhere. I was like, what's going on here? Like, and crystals are cool, like that this is actually happening. And, being in LA, veganism's big, but just seeing the mass movement towards vegetarianism, veganism, it is huge. And I just think that that's kind of a confirmation to people wanting to open their psychic abilities and change the way they eat, and it's kind of beautiful to witness a lot of people doing that, trying to raise their frequency, trying to change it, feel something more, or hone in on those powers that they have, which they all do. And that's another thing. I talk about this in one of my videos. But psychics do not have more power than us. We all have the same powers that they do. People are born more in tune than others, but that's all that is. If you want to seek that power and that knowledge and that wisdom, any of us, doesn't matter where you are, can do it and access that. So I just wanted to point that out, that no one is more superior, more powerful, or better than the other. That's all that is.
How do we relate this to change and those, if that feels related to the same as none of these are better or worse than, and also these are all constantly changing and there's a whole variety of them. And I'm still curious about where that line is between what are we consciously changing, where's our free will coming in, and where is the natural cyclical change that happens with frequencies and with waves and our writing of that.
I think over time, life experience causes, I think in a lot of us, either bitterness or awakening. And through life experience, through not getting so ticked off over something that would have pissed you off a few years ago, it's just the beginning. They say the older you get, the wiser you get. I really feel like you start to change and evolve because life experience shapes you. So when you talk about wavelengths and change, people who consciously choose to repeat patterns of behavior are unconscious to the effects that they have on their frequencies. But those who consciously choose and are aware of the pattern and choose to break this pattern, in turn, in essence, raise their frequency. It's identifying a pattern of behavior that no longer serves and choosing to not repeat it. That's how you raise your vibration.
I love that. Yes. And I love that in that sentence and how you said it, you went through the first two C's of consciousness and choice. and those coming before the change, and how much of the change in the frequency is first hearing it, tuning into it, noticing it. And then, hey, frequency, what are you? Who are you? I've been taught to say that you're not real and that you're whatever. That's interesting. I feel you.
Yes. Yes. If our school systems taught us how to just stop and breathe, I feel like just meditate and just heal our spirituality, line our chakras, this would be so easy. But we have to seek it in this time. So seeking, I think the biggest thing for me in change was I was done repeating those patterns. I was done being a slave to my ego. I was done beating myself up to a pulp in my mind. I was over it. I was so addicted to guilt and shame and self-loathing and hate on my own self that I wanted to change. I finally became conscious of that pattern. And I finally said, no more. That doesn't mean that they don't show up sometimes. That doesn't mean that I'm not still working through trauma, but it is getting easier. And I am fully coming into my light. And every day I accept myself more and more, because every day I choose to love myself a little bit more and to take the time to nurture myself and put all of my frequency, all of my energy into myself in the morning before anybody else gets it. That little self-commitment, that little change in my commitment to myself is huge. So when we choose to love ourselves just a little bit more, when we choose to not want to suffer, that's how we change. So we change our frequency. That's how we raise our vibration. That's how we evolve, expand, and become.
Choosing to give space to your own consciousness every day, and in this way to say, hey self, hey frequency, I got you, you're cool here.
Nurture.
Nurturing. I would love to hear more too about that shift of, and you referenced to Dark Night of the Soul and so many people going through these awakenings of
Dark Night.
And being so, I loved your phrasing of it, of being addicted, because it's an addiction to shame and guilt. Pain addiction is real, oh, well, this is at least more comfortable because it's familiar, so I'm going to keep playing out these patterns until and this is where it's like changes in a cycle and in a loop, and then the break the cycle phrase of, okay, well, wait, what if I got off the hamster wheel here? What if I did something else, or didn't go into this, like you said, beating yourself up to a pulp, which I relate to, which so many people relate to, of acting one way in our conversations with people, and then internally having this dialogue, this vibrational, oh, well, I did something wrong. Oh, I need to do this differently. Oh, some things that are taking us out of really being in it, in the frequency, in the moment.
Yeah. That is huge. Okay, so I want to talk about the dark night of the soul, because we have a few of those in our lives, and they can be mini ones too. Now, I had a huge dark night of the soul before my awakening.
So cute to call them mini.
I know. Because I have to say that I was asked to reflect myself when this whole pandemic happened. I had a mini one because I was, wherever I was, I don't think it really served where I was going in terms of my spiritual path, like with career and like what I was engaged, like just my overall purpose. So also a collective dark night, but the first dark night of the soul, the big one, was absolutely insane, because people might refer to this as a mental breakdown. I just want to just clarify. People might
breakthrough, breakdown. It's maybe both.
What I remember specifically is I was absolutely 110% forced to sit with my thoughts. No amount of alcohol could numb. No drug could, no weed, nothing would work. Literally, you are forced. You're forced to sit with your thoughts and analyze and ask for change. At least that's what I did, because a lot of people want to give up. A lot of people are suicidal. Those thoughts did run, not so much suicidal, but I was just like, it would be so much easier if I wasn't here, kind of thing. But then I realized, like, whoever I was talking to, I was just like, I want to change. I'm awake. I'm awake. I'm awake now. I just kept saying, I'm awake. I'm awake now. I really looked at myself. And that was the day that changed everything. That was the night that changed everything, because you have no choice but to look inside, see what it is, and face it. And it's scary for a lot of people. And during this pandemic, a lot of people had to do that. Not by choice, obviously. It's never really by choice, but it's scary because you just want to go to sleep, and now you have all these thoughts running through, and it feels like the night's never going to end. And I had a mini one. It wasn't crazy or anything. I was just like, okay, like, I know what I've been working towards hasn't been serving me. I know that who I'm surrounding myself with hasn't necessarily been serving me either, and what I choose to put my energy towards. Was I scared? Not necessarily. I was happy it happened, because it was another revelation. It was another realization. It was bringing me back to center. And that's what those are. I embrace those instead of being scared of them, but everyone will go through that at some point in their lives.
And like you said, it will come back around. It's not, there's no end point to this process of, I have refined my frequency and now my frequency is here and it's stagnant and not moving. Unless
you achieve rainbow body and you're a monk in the Himalayas, or like you've dedicated your life to just focusing on love, and you're here now.
Yeah. Are monks addicted to meditating?
Probably, because they vibrate so high, so high, that like their mentality is like is the Christ consciousness. It's the Buddha consciousness. It's literally pure enlightenment. So how do they achieve that? They literally om and focus on the most beautiful things all day long. And they dedicate their lives to, I believe, showing us what stillness looks like, but also achieving a higher. You should look up rainbow body. It's pretty insane stuff. I'm not sure if you're aware of rainbow body, but
not super aware. Not share more.
It's just like this phenomenon where there's a certain symbol. I'll have to send it to you. It's like a rainbow circle. There's a symbol in the middle, and these Tibetan monks stare at this symbol all day long, or envision this symbol, and they do the Om Ah, like A-H, Ah, and they do this forever, like for a long time, until they reach rainbow body, which it's hard to explain because it's a phenomenon, but pretty much when they achieve rainbow body, they can take their hand and smush it, imprint it into a rock. They fly up above into the sky, and like they ascend to a higher dimension. There are 176,000 cases of this. There's a doctor who went and did all this research. I will send you the links. You could add them below, but it's pretty remarkable stuff. And there are pictures to prove rainbow body. But that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. And, they dedicate their lives to ascending to a higher frequency out of this dimension.
Wow. Well, and if everyone was at that frequency, we wouldn't really know that frequency.
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned that.
A whole tapestry of frequencies for there to be the whole wave.
So we're moving towards a fifth dimensional love frequency. So what does that mean? That doesn't mean we all go to another planet or anything. It's right here. What that means is the collective frequency harbors love and self-love. And in essence, Earth would be 100 times more harmonious to live on if everyone was vibrating at this frequency. A little crazy.
Well, I'd be curious. Yeah. And also I feel a lot of what you're saying, and a lot of that shift.
We're moving.
One frequency human perspective of what's going on with this larger whole.
Moving towards a higher dimension. Gaia itself is moving towards a higher dimension frequency. The Earth emits a magnetic wave every few minutes. It's called the Schumann resonance. and the earth emits about a 7.398. With meditation and throughout this whole pandemic, the Schumann resonance has been spiking outrageously. So we are feeling the collective energies more so than normal. And the Schumann resonance can be lifted with mass meditation. So on April 4th, 2020, tons of us in the spiritual community decided to gather together and do a mass meditation initiative. We decided to all meditate together at the same time. This was so big that even conspiracy channels were doing this, live meditations.
For the 4-4 meditate, a 4-4.
Because it would have been on the calendar 4-4-4. So we all meditated for the highest possible timeline. And I mean, that was powerful. I felt it here. I cried, like it was insane. But if you looked at the Schumann resonance, it was absolutely off the charts. Like it was just, it skyrocketed. So we
on that day.
And it's been skyrocketing, but we have the power as a collective. What the Schumann resonance shows us is that we have a collective frequency that can be raised if all of us focus on peace, love, and all that energy is harnessed. We can actually raise the magnetic frequency of Earth, which is outrageously awesome. So I will send that over to you as well. So much info I have to send over to you.
I will link all of that here. It is remarkable, and I love to seeing how science, spirituality, Eastern, Western, all of these things are starting on their own oneness frequency journey of the like even that we can measure things in different ways and start to connect our different ways of looking at things and noticing it.
Absolutely.
Oh, we can put it on this sort of scale and we can see this, and wow, we can play with this sort of experiment of looking and studying what happens when a lot of people essentially sit still and silently.
Oh,
with the intention of noticing their frequency.
I believe it was the mass meditation. They did a mass meditation. I think it was either in Lebanon or some country that was in war turmoil. Something had happened, and all these people were sitting in this temple meditating, and they lowered. It was so powerful that no violence came to them, and like the streets were under attack, and like no violence came in to where they were. Like they were safe because they were all meditating together, and their energetic field pushed all of that away. So they were hearing gunshots out there, but like nothing penetrated this strong meditation frequency of energy that they were emitting. I believe it's like crime was reduced by like 70%. So can you imagine if like all of us just like took 10 minutes out of our day to all like sit and just meditate, like how peaceful Earth would be? But yeah, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of uncertainty, and I think a lot of people feel that kind of fear. Specifically in the beginning, I felt a lot of fear around when this pandemic happened. And it kind of comes in waves, but definitely feel the collective. Definitely feel the intensity sometimes.
Yes, the wave.
The waves. We are all affected by the collective energy, and just making sure that we vibrate at the highest energy for ourselves can then serve others, if that makes sense. If we can heal ourselves within and we work on ourselves and not worrying about affecting anybody else's energy, but worrying about ours, then we can serve others by holding that space, grounding ourselves.
Which again comes to that ego game and that control, and that I'm reminding myself of the only energy I have any changes to make over, the only frequency I can change is mine. And maybe by changing that, I will impact other people, and maybe not, and I have no control over it.
Just you.
Like, what?
Yes, you just have control over you.
Yes.
What were you going to ask?
Do you feel like that's part of the where some of the fear can come up? I'm noticing for me, some of it is that I can feel both fearful of, wow, I have this power, and oh, power is a bad word, or oh, these things that I can change my frequency. And then also this fear that comes up of, wow, I can only change mine. So it's so empowering and so, wow, I have all this freedom. And then also so, wow, I have no impact over anyone else's. And that I'm curious how much you think there's that other people that you go through that too, of this resistance to say, hey, all I can really do for out here is to come back in here. And that's not to say don't call representatives and go to protests and do things and go out. And it's also to say still to do all those things, the importance of continually coming back to your own frequency.
So happy that you brought this up, because the ego seeks to control others. The ego seeks to want to wake up everybody and make them see what I see. The ego wants everyone to act in accordance to what I am practicing and what I am doing. Now, this is where it gets tricky. It is not our job. It is not we didn't come here to change anybody. We didn't come here to violate anyone's free will. When I tell you should do something, I'm infringing on someone's free will. That's a big no-no. You can say whatever has worked in your journey. Yeah. Any spiritual person will tell you that if you watch a lot of people on YouTube, they always start their sentence with this. I know for me in my journey, what helped me, because we don't want to infringe on someone's choice. We don't want to manipulate them into thinking a certain way or just telling them what to do. All we can share is our own personal life experience. And if it shapes and changes and awakens them, then fuck yeah. But I remember in the beginning of my awakening, I just wanted to wake up every single person. This is it. You don't understand, and I realized that that's not the way, because you can, if I listen to The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle and everything clicks and I play it for my sister and she doesn't feel anything or retain the information, it's because she's not supposed to. It's because her soul has chosen to ignore or not retain or not want to wake up.
Or maybe there's a different tool or a different frequency tuning device that is more...
That's for her, yeah. But it's not our job to figure that out. That is their job. They have to want to wake up and they have to want to seek the answers within. They call it the journey inward, because we have all the answers within us. We have innate wisdom deep within our consciousness. We don't need guidance really from anybody else. I mean, yes, we can get assistance, but once we master that guidance, we only need ourselves. And I think it's beautiful because we want to change, because we're taught like, oh, we can change the world. And like, we totally can. But how we do that it's so cliche, leading by example. I remember this as a kid. I was like, shit, like, I hate that saying. Like, what do you mean? Lead by example, lead by example. It is so amazing to witness when I do something and I'm doing my own thing. I'm not worried about anybody else. And then like my friends start doing it, or like my boyfriend starts doing it, and I don't even ask them or talk about it. They just start doing it. It's beautiful. It's because they saw something that serves me, and in their psyche, they're like, all right, this might serve me too. I'm going to try this. Your impact has so much on people. I started my YouTube channel and put myself out there. And then it was like, all of a sudden, all these people around me were being creative too, and pushing the boundaries of themselves and pushing themselves to the limit. And it was like so beautiful to witness. It's so beautiful to witness people being creative too. A lot of us get kind of scared when our friends get creative. Like, we're not doing enough to get creative like them. They're doing more than me. Letting go of that competition and realizing that there is enough in the universe for everybody and that there's an audience for everybody is so important. If there's something that you love, someone out there is going to find it. They're going to like your work. They're going to like you. They're going to like your voice. Just like how my voice might resonate with someone, it might not resonate with a lot of others. And that's okay too. But it's putting ourselves out there I think if I hadn't raised my frequency and if I didn't do some inner work, I would have been too scared to post a video, too scared of what people might say, too scared of falsifying information or something, you know. And you know, I think one of my videos that was like really hard for me to, not hard but difficult to put out for me, was how to open your third eye, because I didn't want to challenge anybody's belief systems. I just wanted to show them what I have found and what worked for me. But that was something I worked through, and I was like, you know, the right people will see this, and I'm not trying to infringe. I just want to help. So
also, you're allowed to challenge people.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like,
you're allowed
to be a little conspiracy theorist in that a little bit.
A lot of what I'm hearing and know in my journey is that being allowed to emit your frequency, saying it's okay for my frequency to take up space, to be here. My frequency is here anyways. Mm-hmm. And then putting it out. And it's funny too with that, especially with the things you talk about and then your own, and how, with me too, how this all goes together of, okay, well, let me talk about and unpack and show my journey with integrating these parts of accepting my ego, accepting all of these parts of myself, accepting all of these shadow parts, and literally doing that practice with what you're doing to talk about that, like the meta layer of, you make a video, you edit the video of you notice the things you're saying and all of your different things that come up in your frequency to say, oh, you shouldn't put it out for this reason. Oh, you did that wrong. Oh, you look weird here. You look what it like.
So happy you brought that up.
And then to still, I'm going to put out this video. I'm in this 3D form. I'm in this body. This feels good, important to put this out, to do this.
Thank you.
And to keep going on that path.
Thank you for just bringing light to how, like, as creators, and I know you've dealt with this, it's just like once we're doing this and we're talking and we're getting the information out, a big part of, I think, our healing is editing, because we have to nurture ourselves and really believe in ourselves once we play it back, to not be judgmental or doubtful about our message, what we're saying, how we're being coming across. And that's a challenge in itself. And I'm learning how to move through that. And I'm learning, okay, I'm going to give myself a day. I've filmed, I'm going to give myself a break, come back to the footage. And I always feel so much better. Like when I take a break for a day and just come back. So also figuring out what works for you and not trying to push ourselves so much and overdo it and wasting our energy and, you know, getting annoyed or frustrated. It's huge. It's everything. It's all balance. It's all balance.
Like pushing your boundaries without it being really a push or a force.
Right.
And also what you said of that beating ourselves up to a pulp, that inner ego voice that's like, this isn't good enough. That's not right. Do this thing.
Right.
And how much our creative practices give us such a practice to be like, wow, look at that frequency that came up there. Ooh, that's interesting. When this happens, that this story starts playing.
Right. And looking at your reflection and being like, I love you. Like, you're amazing. Like, oh my gosh, like, look at you. Look where you came from. Like, flipping the script. And yes, when those things come up, being like, no, like, your message is important. It's okay. It's okay to put yourself out there, because the saddest thing in life would be all your ideas never coming to fruition, never manifesting because you were too scared of being seen. That's a big one. I mean, I struggled with that for years.
Of hiding your frequency, of saying,
yeah, hiding yourself, hiding your essence, hiding.
Oh, it changes too much, or I don't know how to change it into what I want it to be perfectly, quote unquote.
Yes. I think it's something we all deal with, and I think we're moving into the age of creators. I think that I've seen a lot of my friends start, like, a lot of creative projects go to YouTube, and I think we're kind of moving towards the age of being your own boss, being like your own, like, self-sufficient. Like, I think we're moving into the age of creators. I really do. And YouTube's just growing and growing and growing, and it's kind of one of the most beautiful things you could ever witness is the creativity in which people are spewing out right now. I mean, just getting in on the fun and feeling happy that they're creating in the creative element. And I love when don't you just love when like you're in the car and like all of a sudden all your ideas are just all about your show or like what you can do. Like, well, if I did this, well, I could do it like this and film it this way. Or maybe we could, like, I love that. I love those downloads. I love that my intent and my focus is my art, and that is it. I'm not worried about tomorrow or the past. I'm just like, this is great. This is so much fun. Like, I'm sure that's how you feel when you're like, who can I interview next? Or how can I, what I'm speaking about might be new to your audience, but like, I love that you're open to talking to me about all this stuff. And it might seem too cosmic for some people, but that's okay because you're open. And that's what I kind of just absolutely love about you, how open you are.
Oh, thank you. I love your openness, and I love the nurturing that you talk about all of it with and that you share all of it with. And I'm seeing this sort of and feeling this, how much frequency as both energy and emotionality and connection has been so stifled. And part of this, then the pendulum going to the volcanic eruption of creativity, of talking, like you said, of all these crystal shops are popping up, what's happening now, and hey siren, and all of these things where people are,
yeah, like the rituals on the full moon are like a thing. Like, that's not just me. Like, people are charging their moon water. People are, like lighting, like sage is normalized right now. Like, sage is a thing, and that is just awesome. Or like, I remember being in the office and like walking through, and like people had crystals at their desk or crystals in their car. I saw a guy with a diffuser, this Uber driver, in his car. It was really cool. I was like, this is so calming. The use of essential oils is huge. I know that feel that, because essential oils are so healing. Specifically, like for me in my journey, I'm such calming properties to them and their aromatherapy. And the fact that essential oils, crystals, and just astrology is so big. Yes. Oh my God. Everybody is getting in on the birth charts and just believing in power. I mean, it's not a surprise that before this pandemic, the number one movies at the box office were Marvel movies. Now, one could think, oh, that's just the dumbing down of America, and they just want to go to an amusement park or whatever. That is not an accident. That's because people want powers and supernatural powers, and like they feel like, I don't know. I just feel like that's not an accident. Like, people want to hone on their powers.
But Claire is like you're talking about it.
Yes.
Noticing, well, wait a minute. Maybe I have more power than I believe and have been told and have been operating under the belief of.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. There's this really good book that someone recommended to me. It's called Reawakening the Witch. I haven't read it, but I wanted to talk about it because this book talks about the ostracizing of witches in our society, and how they're a bad thing, or like
patriarchy,
right?
Like, or another label of things.
Yeah, like they're just like,
let's push this stuff. Let's
and frequency, right? And like, it's not what it is. Like, I mean, I know some witches, and they're just like really like herbalists. Like they're not bad people. Like I just think it's funny how like things are put into structure for us to think that things are bad when they're not. They've just been given a bad name for many years. Same with like just like psychics. Psychics were kind of like given a bad name for a while, I think. Tarot. It's just why? Why? Why?
I,
Why?
I, 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 And it can change so quickly too with that frequency of then all of a sudden there's crystal shops. All of a sudden people look at this so differently.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Why? Being like, well, wait, why did we put this in this box?
Yeah. I mean, I was
in a frequency. You can't put that in a. How are you putting that in a structure?
Can't. I was in Burbank not too long ago, and there was a witch shop.
It was called a witch shop?
I don't know. I call it the witch shop. I call it that. It's like, I guess it's pagan. I don't know. They just had some really interesting things. But it was cool. I was like, oh, this is dope. All right, now we're into witch shops. Okay, cool. All right. I'm personally into the cosmic crystals and oracle decks, but I think it's kind of cool. That's just another form of working with energetic frequencies or calling in manifestations. Whatever resonates with you works best. But it's just another tool, it's just another thing to kind of reawaken us, get us back to the elementals, working with, trees and nature and holistic healing. And it's beautiful. It's super beautiful.
They're all different tuning forks.
Oh my gosh. There's a holistic dentist. Have you seen that on Vice?
No. What?
Oh yeah. They have, as a holistic dentist, they use tuning forks for your teeth.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I have an oracle deck here. Would you be interested, Matt? Can we close this podcast with an oracle card?
Sure.
Which is funny because me that started this podcast would not have said that and did not have.
I love this idea. What oracle deck do you
remember this deck? Oracle of E.
I've never seen that one.
I got this in LA.
Wow.
I got this in West Hollywood at a yard
sale. In House of Intuition?
I got this at a yard sale.
Oh, even better.
Walking home one day. Yeah, it was really cool. And then the person who I got it from, we each pulled a card for each other. So I thought we could pull a card for the podcast.
Ooh, I'm gonna blow some energy into it.
Okay. Virtually.
Ooh, I feel my brow chakra. I'm asking what must we know at this time?
I love the cards. I call them virtual journaling sometime, or card journaling. I mean. When my science mind's like, but cards, I'm like, it's journaling. Chill. Enjoy. Reflect.
Your scientific mind. It's cards. I love you.
I love you. I love doing this. Okay, here we go.
Let's do it.
How about I shuffle and you tell me when?
Okay.
Okay. And is there anything also, before you say when, that you would like to share? Okay, one came. I'm going to keep going. Anything else about frequency or change or some last minute Claire something that you're like, wait, this thing, I need to say this at this moment, that you feel like we didn't get to?
Yes. I just want to give like a standard message to the collective, and that is, no matter how bad it gets, no matter where you think you are in this world, just remember that there are universal forces, whether you can see them, feel them, whatever it is, your angels, your spirit guides, ancestors, you are always guided, supported, protected, and loved. It's up to you to tune into this guidance and to remember why you're here. So I just wanted to say that you are loved unconditionally, and I wish you could feel that there is so much love for you here. That is all. I just wanted to remind people that they are loved. Sometimes it might not feel that way, but they've got a whole team of people rooting for them. So.
Thank you for that. I got all goosebumpy.
Yes. Oh, yes. And also, too.
I love your downloads and your frequency sharing.
Oh. I also wanted to say one more thing. Just remember that no matter what, you are deserving of all good things in your life. You are deserving of love. You're deserving of a good partner. You are deserving of financial freedom, of anything that you want. You are deserving. You are so deserving. You are worthy. I don't care what you've done. You are so worthy. I just want to remind you that you are, because so many of us think that we don't deserve things, but in reality, we deserve it all. We really do. We deserve the good things to happen in our lives, good people to come in and just accept that love. Just do me a favor and accept that love that comes in and try not to think about it too much. That is all.
Oh, the podcast mush and the pre-podcast talk mush, and thank you.
You're welcome, my sweetheart.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm really honored to have that recorded and shared here.
Yes.
There were 3 cards that fell out that I feel like I'll share off the podcast.
Okay.
Go with those. Do you want to pick one?
Which one fell out first?
Okay.
And we can share that one, and then we can get off the podcast and do the other 2.
The first card that fell out is called Sticky Wicket, number 48.
48.
48. It says, proceed with caution. It's a delicate situation, but that doesn't mean there's any real danger. Just a reminder that it's time to pause, to reflect, to appreciate all you have now and all you're about to receive. Receive the love.
Wow.
Receive the frequency.
Pause and take time to reflect. That's a big theme, I think, with this whole, with 2020. Just all of 2020. Just proceed with caution, but take time to reflect and just breathe and notice what's in front of you. Huge. That's a beautiful card. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you for this feeling of the going into these conversations, normalizing, being another conversation, putting out, hey, we can't see frequency and it is real, whatever real means. And that's
to you. Yeah. Yes. Whatever is real to you.
I love to, I'm going to tag back to this at the end. You said, what you emit is what you get. And I love that.
Yeah.
That catchphrase, and also, what is your frequency? What's coming in?
I love that. Yes. What you emit is what you get. It's a mirror to you. You mirror reality of what you, so yes, you will receive what you put out. So be kind to everybody.
And to yourself, like you said, to remember that you're worthy too.
So worthy. So worthy. Just trust and believe that the universe is always working in your favor and you'll never worry again. I'll leave it up to the universe. It's got me.
Okay, done. I trust. I'm done.
That's it. We're trusting.
And we're good here. Call it.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
I will put all your information here, the frequency you need on YouTube and Instagram. People can find you and connect with both of us about any reflections about this.
I love this. Absolutely. I'm here. Oh, blessings.
Thank you so much for your time, for your frequency sharing here.
Oh, it was an honor.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you for tuning in, and thanks for being you.